Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review the third episode of What If. Kind of feels like a random episode because, really, what is to actually come out of all this is just to be like, well, wait a minute, what? At some points. But this is a really funny episode. There is a lot of points where you're just like, oh, they're redoing this thing, or they're coming back to this, or they're having fun with this in this episode. It's a lot of that in this episode. More than likely, I probably should have came in here with detailed notes of every little trick of every little thing. But, I'm just kind of free flowing it, just kind of see what ends up happening and what all I remember and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I had some fun with this episode, but I was also just like, but wait a minute, villain's story isn't in the episode. Villain's whole reason for being villain isn't in the episode. Just because they could say, oh no, it's right there, it's this scene is right. No, it's not there. And people who eventually will watch the episode may feel the same way, or no, just like, oh no, they explain that part, not on screen. Yeah. But it seems like they have a lot of fun with a lot of characters, so we'll give them that. They have some fun with seemingly not only the Avengers in this episode, but some Asgardians, some just a lot of just different characters, mixture of things. And so yeah, gotta give them that. Other than that, yeah, it's just, it kind of felt like a good episode, and I have to question that, where it's like, good episode, but it was just like, oh, so this is what the gimmick of this is? Oh, I've seen a What If comic book that felt similar to this, so I was just like, oh, so this is the gimmick. This is the way of which that this episode is going to be done. Okay. That was my overall just kind of when I went into the episode, I was like, oh, we're doing this. All right, well, hope next week's is going to be really interesting. And plus also I was just hoping, I'm like, man, I hope we get something drastically different, but kind of just the same. But anyways, yeah, it's just, I would say this is a good episode, but mixed feelings with that. So yeah, I think I have much more to talk about in spoiler terms than I probably do in cryptic sense. There's not much that I can talk about. There is a lot of dipping of a lot of Avengers movies, but it won't feel that you need to go and watch a bunch of things to understand what's going on here, because these characters, for the most point in this episode, are just there. They're just there. They're being put in certain scenes from movies, but there isn't any I need to go back to so-and-so movie to understand anything that's going on. No, it doesn't. It's not going to matter. So, going into this one, let's just go into spoilers. I can't have much else to say. So let's go out of our way to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time we do spoil this episode. So now we're in spoilers. So the very first beginning of this episode, it seems like they're going through some of the same old lines from any of the number of Avengers movies, or just kind of going through the same number of lines through just kind of just things that we've already heard at some point in time. Because, like, that's always how things are run. Every single thing is going to be like that. And so, like, there's slight changes, slight tweaks, and me complaining about it, like, once we get to third episode, is just like, yeah, they're not going to change that because they're freaking Marvel and they're freaking Disney. And, like, if they could have copied and pasted every single thing to put that out there, then me complaining about it when I'm sure everybody loves every single one of these episodes. Because I'm sure everyone does, and I'm just the minority of it all. But anyways, boo-hoo for me. Anyways, going on here, so Fury is talking to Widow, talking about the Avengers Initiative, because this is in the very beginning of Iron Man 2, or somewhere in the Iron Man 2 movie, where we're like first talking about the Avengers Initiative. And Fury's talking about Romanoff, how he took a chance on a Russian operative and turned her to work for them, and how much of a risk that was. And because, like, Romanoff wants nothing to do with Tony Stark joining the Avengers, and Nick Fury is just like, well, hey, like, I had to take a risk on you, so now we can take a risk on him. So Tony, who Romanoff mentions is to have a hangover because he had a party, and so Iron Man is sitting on that donut, that giant donut, going and eating donuts, and Fury's like, excuse me, Mr. Excuse me, Mr. Stark, could you mind getting off that donut? So, we go into the diner, of course. Tony Stark is to mention, like, hey, I'm not going to join your boy band, and, like, basically we go through the same run of lines of Iron Man 2. They're going to give him, supposedly, the kind of suppressor of Iron Man's problems that he's having in Iron Man 2, where he was to supposedly get, I think, a new, like, palladium something going on for his chest piece. I don't know, it's been such a while since I've seen Iron Man 2. That's probably not even the right thing. And he's kind of gone through every permeation and all that kind of jazz. So, like, this is going back from a long memory of Iron Man 2. Like, luckily I can barely remember any of that. So, Black Widow is to supposedly inject Tony with this kind of pick-me-up. All of a sudden, it picks up a little bit more than just Tony. All of a sudden, it picks him up and then keels him over. And then all of a sudden, Black Widow is to be arrested because she's to supposedly be a murderer of Tony Stark. So Fury is just like, yeah, I know that you didn't kill Tony Stark, but I'm going to need you to figure out who did. So Fury gives Widow a thing to be able to uncuff herself. So while she's getting hauled away by Romo, the guy who eventually ends up becoming Crossbones after Winter Soldier. I think it's Rumlow. Yeah, Rumlow. This is all coming from a memory. Oh my god, I'm freeballing it. So, because I'm not going with a cast list or anything, I'm just going to freeball it. So, Widow goes in this van, Rumlow hauls them away. Widow is to go and give one of her guards her cuffs and just starts beating them all up. At first, she had mentioned that she wanted some music to be playing. But yeah, so she ends up just clocking everybody, beating everyone up. Black Widow is to eventually go off to make it to Bruce Banner, who is, of course, going to be Hulk. But we are in a setting of Incredible Hulk, which is actually pretty great. I thought that was great that we're kind of recycling Incredible Hulk, but this time around we're doing it with Mark Ruffalo. No offense to Edward Norton. I would have liked to have still had Edward Norton, but I also think that Disney wanted to just like, hey man, I think that we should just remake this whole spot and put Mark Ruffalo in there, so that way for anybody that is to ever like mention like, well, hey man, not all the Hulk movies are connected. Bam, there's your solution right there. That Mark Ruffalo is the Incredible Hulk, and they're all one and the same, even though they're not. So, and we do this by having Black Widow meeting Betty Ross. Betty Ross taking Black Widow to this science lab where coincidentally Bruce Banner is to be delivering pizza at that same exact time. And so Widow eventually is to ask Betty, it's like, well, hey, do you have a side job? Because she sees the pizza hat and the box of pizza, and Betty's like, no. So Natasha eventually is to want to see what's behind door number 1, and Bruce Banner just finally opens the door, and he is to just be like, well, like, hopefully there's not going to be any violence here, because that's not going to work out for the best of either one of us. Or it's not going to work out for the best of you, because freaking, like, he'll just turn into the Hulk and just beat you down. Anyways, we have to transition to the first Thor movie. Coulson is to, of course, find Mjolnir, which leads, of course, Coulson to like get the whole like tents and everything to like secretly hide away Mjolnir from everyone. And so weirdly, where Coulson is, Nick Fury is, and where Nick Fury and like Coulson is just off in the ground, just kind of checking things. Because I guess hey, if Nick Fury is gonna be in this episode, he's gonna really be in this episode. Like Coulson, you'll just have to be a character off to the side, sadly enough. So, really good jokes during this spot. Like, anything to do with Thor is freaking hilarious. But here's the thing. Not one word is spoken by Thor. That really just sucks, but, like, it was bound to happen. So, we just see Thor, who is to just run through all these security guard guys like he did in Thor 1. Coulson is to spot Thor and just be like, whoa, like, this guy looks like beautiful. He looks he looks gorgeous. Like, I was expecting them to make some like Fabio reference or Fabio joke or like something like that, but like Coulson is like, Thor looks gorgeous. And so, like, man, this guy's seriously got some hair, like some serious hair or something like that. They make some kind of crack about how like he has like really long flowing hair and all the. So Thor makes his way into to get to Mjolnir, and of course Hawkeye is of course getting his bow and arrow out, getting set up like of course in the Thor movie. Thor is of course getting set up to go and take Mjolnir almost like he did in the original film. Fury, instead of Coulson, is telling Hawkeye like, "Hey, I want to see what happens here." Like Nick Fury is kind of copying what Coulson had said word for word in the Thor movie. So Hawkeye has his arrows kind of like set to go, and so Hawkeye is like, "Yeah, Coulson isn't lying. This is a one handsome man or something like that. Like, yeah, real, real good looker, a real good looking guy or whatever." So like, we have these jokes continue to happen, like talking about how good looking Thor is, and so all of a sudden Hawkeye is to let go of his arrow to have Hawkeye's arrow go into Thor's chest and kill him because Thor technically right now is mortal and he isn't all the but wait a minute. Like me just thinking of that, wouldn't have Mjolnir come to Thor then after he died? Or did Thor not prove that he was worthy? So Thor just died because he didn't prove his worth? Because I was just thinking of that. Because Thor died, or Thor almost clearly died in the first Thor movie. And then Mjolnir came to him, but like that was after he was to sacrifice himself. Oh, so yeah, so he didn't sacrifice himself, so he didn't prove that he was worthy. So Thor obviously could die without getting revived or whatever by Mjolnir because Mjolnir is like, dude, you ain't worthy. You ain't worthy, buddy. So now we have both. We have both Tony Stark and Thor kind of dead. Funny enough, Coulson is to mention, like, man, this guy is just, like, rotting as the day is young. But, man, he smells like lavender. Like, even when this guy is, like, decomposing, he smells like lavender. Something about him. Like, and Nick is just like, really? And so he takes a whiff and he's like, I think you're right about that. Like, God, it's just, okay. Thor smells like lavender when he dies. Okay, I can't wait to that to be proven in the MCU when eventually that happens. Because I'm sure there's going to be some joke of that somewhere down the line, right? When he actually does die. I hope there's a lot of jokes that come out of this what if thing where they just kind of, for anyone who is still technically still alive, like they go about this and just like, hey man, I thought I saw you die once. Anyways. So, Thor dying all of a sudden. Thor dies. Loki and all the Asgards just come on down because they're the next contestants on, like, hey, we're going to want to know who the person was who was to kill Thor. Because Loki comes down because of vengeance of Thor's death, which I'm like, wait a minute, like, Loki wanted Thor gone. How is it all of a sudden he has to, like, seek vengeance upon Thor's death? Like, is Loki just that kind of person that, since Loki didn't kill Thor himself, like, he now is, like, so upset that someone else did? What is it? Whatever. But so Nick Fury talks to Loki, and Loki is to have this thing called the Casket of Ancient Winters, the weapon from Jotunheim. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I know it's like it starts with like casket of something winters. Like I hope I said that correctly. Like it's from the first Thor movie. I don't think I even said that in the first Thor review that I did. I think I just called it like the Jotunheim weapon because that's where it's from. Like I was like Jotunheim weapon, the blasty thing that Loki is to hold. I don't think I even called it what it was actually called, but if I did, good for me. But I highly doubt it. Check the Thor review and see if I did, because I doubt I did. I probably called it the Jotunheim weapon, but mood point. Because like I think during that part I probably got lazy during that whole review because I just didn't want to look it up. But I don't know if I did. Anyways, pushing on. So, uh, Widow is to be with Banner. So, Banner is to run off, and at this point, we're in the Incredible Hulk movie where Banner was supposedly eating a USB port to keep the information from anyone about the Hulk and about how to either create one or to figure out Banner in some way or fashion and whatever. Uh, so Widow is calling Fury, mentioning what's going on with her, and Fury vice versa with Loki, just having this conversation. Loki, Nick Fury's phone is consistently going off. Loki's getting really annoyed because it's like, you gonna get that? Like, could you just get your phone? Like, because I'm saying things here, like I'm talking here. So Fury says this whole line of things to Romanoff. Loki's like, oh, lady troubles. That was funny. Uh, so now Ross is holding every gun in the world up against Hulk. All of a sudden, there is to be a random shot fired by someone, and Ross is to be, oh my god, like who shot? Like who fired the first bullet? So, Widow was to try to like do like the first Avengers thing, where she is to like promise on her life that uh, that they'll get out of here, and Banner's like, your life, and then all of a sudden he's to change. Like it's kind of reminiscent to the very first time that Hulk changed in the Avengers movie, because Banner is going to change now. Banner, of course, crashes through the window like he did in Incredible Hulk, lands, and of course is to all of a sudden start going and taking everybody down. Then all of a sudden Hulk just explodes for a bizarrish reason. Because we just got through having Hulk tell us it's like, well, I'm basically unkillable. Yeah, I'm sure you are. Yeah, Hulk is now unkillable until... What? So I guess when also looking at it, like Deadpool did do the Marvel kills the Marvel universe. So like anybody can be killable when you really ask Deadpool, but like so everyone can die, like even if it feels like they like can never die. What if it's like Lady Death? Can she actually die? Probably not. But maybe there's going to be someone that is going to be equal to her, and then Deadpool is like, well, I'm just gonna sick this thing on you and then you're gonna die. Chimichangas. Anyways. So Betty is just at a loss because, of course, that was technically her husband, and she's like, "How could he have died? What?" So this transitions Black Widow to go into the SHIELD computer and try to figure things out. And what ends up happening is, I guess we should get to the Clint Barton stuff. So Clint Barton was accused of Thor's death, and he was arrested. Nick Fury goes back to Clint, and all of a sudden Clint just falls off to the side. We find out that Hawkeye is dead. I guess we're not going to have a Hawkeye show now. Well, that sucks. Yeah. R.I.P. Hawkeye. Because there's a lot of jokes in Age of Ultron that I could just put out right now. No one will ever know. Thanos just... Or if Ultron just sits on him, no one will ever know. There's an army of robots and I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense. Oh, Clint died. I didn't make any jokes of anyone else, but it is what it is. Of course, Fury is to call Black Widow to let her know that Clint died, but that was just, Clint didn't die in a cool way. Clint didn't die in a cool... Compared to everyone else. He just dropped off to the side. Weirdly, people were naturally thinking that maybe Clint had ended his own life, and Fury was just like, I'm sorry, but no. This guy had a family, this guy had kids, I doubt that he would just go that route. That just seems absurd. There has to be something else going on here. Pushing now Black Widow to go on into the SHIELD database, stealing, of course, Coulson's password. That is hashtag I love or Steve, I love Steve. Which was funny. Maybe there was a Steve in there that I didn't get to. Maybe there was some other... At least it's not War Machine Rocks with 2 X's or whatever, or 2 Z's. Yeah. People and their funny passwords. Black Widow goes to the computer and finds out that somebody had gone into the Avengers Initiative files to figure out who the Avengers were. Because, of course, Fury is to find out that everybody is to be wiped out of whoever was to be picked for the Avengers Initiative. And I guess there were some people left off of that name, or off of that team, like a Captain Marvel, or a certain guy with a shield, or maybe a girl with a shield. Because what if will tell you, you know what I'm saying? So Black Widow is to find out there had been a person who was dead that had accessed the Avengers Initiative file. So it's like, oh, well, it has to be the only person who is technically dead who accessed this file. All of a sudden, Widow is to be attacked by seemingly the Invisible Man. Widow is mentioned because she hears a sound. It's like, well, hey, if you're going to try to, get me, you're not. It's going to be a failing mission there, person. Is this Ghost? Is this some other entity from some Marvel MCU? No. No, meaning it's not Ghost, but it's some other entity from the MCU. So... the last thing that Black Widow is to tell Fury is that, hey, it all has to tie into Hope. It all has to do with Hope. Fury, how about you do a little hopity ropity slopey thing? You know what I'm saying? So Nick Fury is to get this message and like, what the heck does hope mean? Like, what besides like us all having it with this whole Avengers thing? What does that all mean? And then while like Nick Fury is to try to figure this out, all of a sudden Coulson is to just kind of say hope yet again. And then Nick Fury's like, you know what? I think I got something here. But you know what? I think I'm going to make a deal with Loki. Because Loki had mentioned that in 1 day's time, they better come up with the killer of Thor. And like they want much more than a pound of flesh. So Nick Fury goes back to Destroyer, which means he goes back to Loki to bargain with Loki to just be like, hey man, like, I think I figured this out, but I might need your help. So Fury goes to the graveyard to talk to someone, let's just say, because Nick Fury is to eventually get killed off because he is also a part of the Avengers Initiative. He is pretty much the only one left out of this thing. So Nick Fury goes to the grave of Hope Van Dyne, who supposedly had butted heads so much with her father that Hope Van Dyne had supposedly joined S.H.I.E.L.D. And since Hope Van Dyne, who was the Wasp, if people didn't know, evidently Hope just died on some mission when she was a S.H.I.E.L.D. member. I'm like, did they show that? No. So, like, and they couldn't even show any part of it ever in this episode? Were they strapped for time? Did they not want to show, like, Wasp because, like, they already spent a lot of money on certain kind of things here? I would have wanted to see, like, how this woman died, why she died. Like, it was just, like, some random mission. But I guess because of how much Hank Pym and Hope had grown so distant, Hope's death all of a sudden just drove Hank Pym bat crap crazy, because all of a sudden the original Ant-Man is no longer Ant-Man, he is to be the Yellow Jacket. So in other words, like, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, why didn't Ant-Man, who is Hank Pym, just become the Wasp? He could have just became the Wasp. That would have made a lot of sense. Because technically his wife, who was the original Wasp, is dead. His daughter, who could have became the Wasp, is now dead. But, like, Hank Pym just decided to just become Yellow Jacket? There have been a male version of Yellow, or he could have been any number of other things. Like, he could have been Giant Man, or he could have been anything. But I guess Yellow Jacket, I guess the weaponry of it makes sense for him to be Yellow Jacket. I don't know, it just, like, why Yellow Jacket? Plus also, it just looked like, it didn't look like MCU, like, Yellow Jacket. It just looked like, basically, like, Ant-Man with a different paint job. For the most point. It was like, so, like, cause that's why I was confused. I was like, well, is this a different version of Ant-Man? Is this the Wasp? Is it Yellow Jacket? What is this? Because I was like, yellow, so Yellow Jacket, but, like, Ant-Man, what is it? Is it Giant Man? But I ended up finding out, I ended up kind of, like, searching it and Googling it, and people were saying that this character was Yellow Jacket. I'm like, okay, alright. but I guess it really doesn't matter because it's Hank Pym regardless. But I just wanted to like know for sure. Anyways, uh, so Yellow Jacket is to go shooting to try to kill Nick Fury because of the vengeance of his daughter dying in some random mission because who cares about the Wasp, I guess, right? Like, who gives about the Wasp, even though, like, the whole crux of Yellow Jacket becoming a villain was because of her death, but, like, we can't actually show it on the show because she's not important enough, even though I think eventually she and a billion other people become Avengers, but, like, maybe it would have been cool if Yellow Jacket would have had to forcibly kill every single Avenger, like all like 50 some odd of them. But yeah, so the way of which that Hank Pym was to kill Hulk was interesting. How he entered through the bullet wound and then he expanded Hulk's heart to an extravagant degree where like that's how Hulk can be killed now. So, man, all I need to do is just become like the Yellow Jacket or Hank Pym, and like Hank Pym or Yellow Jacket or whoever can just kill anybody. Like, they can just, like, we need to have a comic book now where Ant-Man just kills the Marvel Universe, because now, like, Ant-Man could just kill anyone. If he sneaks up on him or whatever, he can just take them all, that he can just kill them all. Like, having Ant-Man kill the entire Avengers seems like the most goofiest thing that I have ever heard as a story. And it is kind of hilarious because, like, Ant-Man's movies didn't do that well in the box office compared to everyone else. But I guess that's the vengeance of it all, of just like, hey, Ant-Man didn't do well, so he's just gonna have to kill all the Avengers because of it. That's his real jealousy. But it wasn't even like Scott Lang. It was technically Hank Pym. So like, it's like Ant-Man is Ant-Man. It doesn't matter which kind of Ant-Man it is. So it would have been cool to see Paul Rudd just dead off to the side somewhere. Yeah, like Scott Lang, he was dead. Like he was buried right next to Hope. I don't know why, but because he never became Ant-Man. So, anyways, let's finish this up. So, Nick Fury is to all of a sudden appear as seemingly a billion different Furies. And so Hank is like, what the heck is going on? And so he's trying to kill all of these Furies. We just end up showcasing that Loki and Fury are working together, and so Hank is to just forcibly just need to give up. And so that just all of a sudden leads to have Loki and Fury. Like, Loki is to basically just go, you know what? Like, I think I'm gonna be like happy like being on this rock after all. Like this whole Midgard thing. Like, you know what? Like, I think like I'm just gonna stick around. So Loki is to go to the UN and just basically go into like the whole speech of like Avengers all over again, where he's like, I've brought glad tidings and you were made to be ruled, and and like Loki is just establishing dominance again, but he is to establish dominance on planet Earth to like cement that cement his glorious purpose, if that's what's to come out of this. But yeah, so Loki rules the Earth after the Avengers are to die, because I guess Loki is the only real true Earth's defense up until Fury is to go and find Captain America frozen still, because Captain America vs. Avenger is just a thing that happened, and Fury was to find the pager of Captain Marvel from the 90s. And so when Fury finds Captain America, all of a sudden Captain Marvel appears and like, what's the mission? And like that's how the episode ends. Is just be like, oh, okay, so they're technically still going to be an Avengers team. It's probably just going to be a different roster of people. So either way, there's probably still going to be Avengers regardless of like, oh well, Thor died and Hulk and like, so they're kind of devaluing their Avengers team to basically just say that anybody could just be an Avenger. It didn't really matter that these people were were there because it's just like, nah, there's just going to be someone else just going to replace them eventually. There's eventually going to be a new Avengers team, I'm sure, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. But like, why would they have to like go by the exact same name? Like, wouldn't it be cool if they just like, hey, we're the new Warriors, or like we're this new team. We're not going to be called the Avengers because like the Avengers Initiative is over, unless it's a two-parter. I don't know. Like maybe like I don't know. But anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. This review is probably way too long. I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.